I will call to order a meeting of the Wilsonville City Council for our regular session at 7 p.m. on Monday, May 20th. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to start by asking the city recorder to call the roll.
Councillor Berry.
Here.
Councillor Linville.
Here.
Council President Ackerval.
Here.
Mayor Fitzgerald.
Here.
And Councillor Dunwell is excused.
Thank you. Will everyone please join us and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Council President Ackerval, may I have a motion to approve the following order of agenda?
Your Honor, I move to approve the following order of agenda.
Is there a second?
I will second that motion.
Motion's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. I'm going to start with mayor's business, and then we will go to our communications section. And I'm going to start with something very solemn for us tonight, and that is to ask for us to take a moment of silence, and that is to recognize the recent passing of Councillor Katie Dunwell's husband, Jim Dunwell. As a devoted husband and father, Jim loved spending time with his family and his wife, Katie, and he strongly supported Katie's time spent serving the community as a member of this city council. He was a highly regarded architect, an avid golfer, and he was a dedicated rescuer of cats that needed foster homes. In fact, once he fostered them, they stayed. And he will be dearly missed by his family and friends. He died of a fast-moving cancer and passed away this last weekend. So please join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. Since our last regular city council meeting on May 6th, I would like to update the council on a number of items. Our next meeting is going to be Monday, June 3rd at 7 p.m. Last week, our budget committee completed their annual sessions studying the budget, which includes our budget committee includes all the members of the city council, 5 members of the city council, and 5 citizen representatives. And so they had a gigantic book of information and plenty of time to study ahead of time, and then presentations by staff and chances to ask questions. They completed their work and they recommended that budget to the city council. So we will see that on June 3rd for our proposed approval. Last Saturday, the City Council, along with officials from other local, state, and federal governments and members of the public, attended the grand opening of the city's new Public Works complex. I want to thank Council President Kristen Ackerval and Councillor Dunwell, who were able to join us that day also, and met people who also attended the open house, and we toured the entire complex. It was very interesting. Want to thank our city staff who spent a long time working on the financing plan and all of the details. There are many members of the staff who worked on that, and of course the Public Works Department and the City Council that spent time thinking about what would be best for that complex. So thank you to Public Works Director Delora Kerber and her department for their work on that. This new Public Works complex, which you can see on Boberg Road, that is near the Smart Bus headquarters, was really designed to support activities related to the city's infrastructure maintenance and also to serve as an emergency operations center during emergencies. It is our city's first seismic Class 4 building, and it was designed to be operational immediately after an earthquake. The Public Works Department supports our 27,000 residents. I'm thinking about all the things it does, our 1,200 businesses here in Wilsonville, and all of the people who work here during the day, because we have a great influx of people who come to work in our businesses here every day, that all with all the residents and everyone else, including people who are driving by the freeway and might stop. All of them depend on our Public Works Department to make our streets, stormwater, fresh water, public safety, fire protection, make all of that work. So, and our Public Works staff coordinate with other state, county, and local government agencies during emergencies and natural disasters. And if you ever have a chance to tour the facility, you'll see that it is highlighting the city's commitment to sustainability with rooftop solar panels and energy-saving lighting and HVAC systems. Previously, the Public Works operations were scattered all across the city because we didn't have any one place for a headquarters big enough to keep even half of the equipment, so they used different locations. Now we have everything in one secure, seismically resilient location, and that department can now tend to all of our needs more efficiently. Also last week, I attended the groundbreaking organized by Wilsonville Area Chamber of Commerce for Precision Countertops. And Precision Countertops, as you might guess, fabricates countertops. They make both quartz and granite countertops here in Wilsonville. They have 200 employees. They've been in Wilsonville since 2006 in leased space. And their groundbreaking was celebrating moving to a space that they have designed and are building in the Coffee Creek Industrial Area, which is an area the city has built infrastructure, utilizing urban renewal funds and commercial financing. So this is an example of how our city is growing. In fact, I was just reviewing this and determined that the fastest growing aspect of our city is employment and our jobs base. And we have a private sector payroll. If you add up all of the paychecks across the city in the private sector now, it is $1.2 billion, and that has increased 48% in the last 10 years. And we celebrate Precision Countertops for taking their next chapter in this new building that they're really excited to be starting to build now. Also, last week, I participated, it was a busy week, in the annual Metro Regional Government's Joint Policy Advisory Committee on Transportation lobby trip to Washington, D.C. So that group is known by its acronym of JPACT, and we have an opportunity once a year to work together to create a unified request of what the city and our region needs for roads and things that we can only get from our federal government. And they expect us to be very focused on the top needs and present those as a unified group. They don't want to hear a whole bunch of different requests, although at the same time, if you have a specific request, each city does have an opportunity to meet individually, often with our federal officials. And I was joined by our Director of Government Affairs, Mark Ottenad, and our Smart Director, Dwight Brashear, because so much of this has to do with our government relations and our transit department. We met with members of Congress, congressional office staff, and staff of the Department of Transportation and Federal Transit Administration. We also met with Senator Ron Wyden, Senator Jeff Merkley, and Congresswoman Andrea Salinas, both as a JPACT group and individually representing our own city's needs. We requested and lobbied for the Oregon Department of Transportation's proposed I-5 Boone Bridge and seismic improvement project, which is very important to us, and also the French Prairie Bike Ped Bridge, which ODOT is now looking at incorporating with that new bridge as an alternative transportation facility. And then as the last point of our trip was for something that was Wilsonville specific, we featured attention on the city's $22 million federal grant application for the I-5 bike ped bridge, which has been a constant request from our citizens going back as many as 15 years. They want a way to, people in Wilsonville want a way to connect the west side neighborhoods with the east side. And we have, this grant application is called a RAISE grant. We had a couple of conversations about that, and we should hear the results of it by the end of June. We were also advised if we do not get funding in this round, we are invited to have a meeting about it and consider resubmitting in the fall. So we will see how that proceeds. The bike ped bridge is a component of the Town Center Master Plan and our Wilsonville Transit Center Transit-Oriented Housing Development Project. One thing I wanted to bring up today is that each month, at the end of the month, in our city council packet is an information section. It's a series of city manager reports. Each of the departments puts together really detailed reports on what they have been working on throughout the month. And it's really a detailed set of facts about what is happening in Wilsonville. I wanted to highlight just one of them and feature this as an opportunity for people to look into the progress in the city and what is happening. The one that was of most interest to me that I thought would be applicable today is the report from the Community Services Department and our Economic Development Manager on food carts. And so if you look in the city council packet tonight, or anytime today, it's online for this meeting, and go to the back and get to the section on community development, you will see this report. And it talks about some of the things that we have been discussing about food carts quite a bit lately. Our economic development manager, because we know people have an interest in food carts. Our economic development manager has been meeting with other cities that have food carts that are very successful. One of them is in West Lynn, and it was not built by the city at all. It was built by a private developer who had land and decided to embark on that business model and see how it would go. And they have reported that it has exceeded the owner's financial forecasts. City of Milwaukee happened to have some land that it owned related to the old City Hall property, and so they sold that property to a developer who is now using its own resources to put in a food cart pod. It sounds really interesting. So the key takeaway is that Wilsonville is ready for its own food cart establishment, but the lacking element may not be government facilitation of that outcome. Really what it takes is an ambitious business sense person who's interested in looking into that. That could be any place in our city that would allow it now, or perhaps in the town center. So those are things that are private sector driven. Maybe somebody will come forth and decide to add to our successful business sector and bring that in. So if you'd like to read more about it, go to our information section in the city manager packet, part of our packet. And I have, there are two different things happening for mayors in the region coming up in the next few days. In fact, tomorrow, I'm joining some other mayors for a meeting of the Clackamas County Business Alliance. It's our May luncheon, and this time it was my turn to suggest a topic, and because I'm a graduate of Oregon State University and School of Agriculture, I've been wanting to focus on agriculture, and we have some fantastic speakers about the unique economic value of agriculture in Clackamas County. So this is going to be a fantastic presentation. We have 4 speakers tomorrow, and we will feature the value of the traded sector of agriculture in Clackamas County. And a couple of examples of those businesses in Clackamas County: Campbell's Soup, which used to be called, which is also known as Pacific Natural Foods now, but it was bought by Campbell's Soup. It now employs 600 workers in the Tualatin and Wilsonville communities, and they have a 500,000 square foot warehouse in Wilsonville, but they get their ingredients from farmers in the region. So we're going to be hearing about how important water is to our agricultural producers and what our county can do to keep that sector strong and going forward. And then later this week, 8 mayors, including me, will speak at the West Side Economic Alliance Annual Mayors Forum, and each mayor will be talking about some of their priorities, challenges, and opportunities, and looking forward to that. We always learn something from each other. And in conclusion, for my report, sorry it's so long this time, I want to celebrate National Public Works Week. The proclamation is in our packet, and this is an opportunity. It was convenient timing for when we opened our Public Works building. It's an opportunity to pay tribute to our Public Works professionals and recognize the substantial contributions that they make to our health, safety, and advancing our quality of life. So that concludes my mayor's business, and now we'll move to the communications portion of our agenda, and we will start with a recognition of Sean Sipe. And I know that Representative Courtney Neron is here now, I think. Thank you for joining us, Representative Neron. So, and Kelly, Willamette High School Principal Kelly Schmidt is here to present this. If you would both like to come up. Do you want to make a little presentation about the story of how it happened?
I actually am not prepared to do that. Does
You
Sean
can-
want to tell us a little bit about it?
You want to come over here and stand at the microphone, Sean?
Sure.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
So I'm going to show you a little bit about what we have here. So we have a certificate for you in recognition of outstanding achievement for advocating for the creation and passage of House Bill 4147 to make school bus stops safer for all Oregon students. And this certificate is presented to Sean Sipe today by the Wilsonville City Council. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I thought maybe you could just tell a little bit about, I've heard Representative Neron talk about this, maybe you could just talk about your part of this adventure. Thank you.
Let me think here. So I think it was late 2020, and I was at a stop, and a kid was getting off the bus, and a big truck drove right past, probably like 40, 50 miles an hour, clearly over the speed limit. The kid would have crossed the street, he would have gotten hit, but thankfully he didn't. It was right next to his driveway. But I was thinking, like, why don't we have something that can, prevent that from happening? Because we have, stoplight cameras and all that kind of stuff. Why is there nothing on a bus? So I reached out to, I believe it was the school board, what's her name? I feel bad, I don't remember. The superintendent.
Dr. Level.
Yes. And so her and I got to talking, and she put me in contact with Representative Neron, and her and I worked through the passing of a bill together. Unfortunately, the Capitol had a thing where people walked out. I don't really know how that works, but a bunch of people walked out, and so it got delayed. But it's all right, because it got passed, which I'm very happy about. I can't have enough thanks to Representative Neron, my mom, my dad, everyone who helped me in the process. I can't thank them more for this. I'm just glad that we can make our community safer and keep our students safer. That's it.
Yeah, as a principal at Wilsonville High School, having Sean as a student, as a leader who sees a problem and wants to find a solution, he emailed me right away and was like, we need to do something about this. And so we got him in touch with people who could make decisions, and with his advocacy, keep kids safe. So we're super proud of Sean and what he's done to keep our kids safer in our community. And I think he's maybe got a little inkling of some ways that he can continue to make a difference. So it'll be fun to see where that goes.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Could I ask Representative Neron to join us here for a picture? We have this new picture location. And would you like to join us? Oh, yes. So you now have these on all.
Well, I think it comes in effect January 1st.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Cool.
So now we're going to the golf. All right, well, now we are going to celebrate the 2024 Class 5A State Golf Championship Women's Team from Wilsonville. So that is really fantastic. And so what I'm going to do is read your names off, and please come up and get your certificate. And then I think we'd all like to take a picture here as well. And Coach Chris Benson, if you'd like to say a few words after I pass these out, that would be wonderful. So how many do we have? Okay. All right. Well, what about a picture? Does anybody want a picture with their certificate? Or just the group? They're okay with the group. Okay. I will start with Layla Sidhu. Okay. Evie Dunn. Maddie Downey. Sophia Rashko. Horizon Christian. And Malia Kalakilo.
She's not here tonight.
Okay, we'll give that to her later.
Yeah,
And
why don't you have Coach
Okay,
Wilson
let's
come
do
up
a
and then
picture with the
do a
coach,
picture.
and then we'll ask you to tell a little of the story.
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
You want to get in
All
there?
right. Well, I really am not a golfer yet.
Well,
You're motivating, you're
maybe
inspiring me. Yeah.
All right, 1, 2, 3. Sorry, I'm going to get out of the way.
All right, congratulations.
And before Coach Benzel makes his remarks, I would like to just mention that he has been named Coach of the Year as well, which he will not say that.
No, I will not say that. But anyways, it's an amazing thing to be around 7 actually really, really talented young ladies. Kind of reminds me of why I got in the golf business. They have so much spirit. Not only are they great golfers, but they're actually great humans. Very gracious in the way they win. Shaking hands, treat all the other players in the events with respect is probably what I'm most proud of. They have lost 1 round in 3 years. So it's quite a win streak, and they've remained humble. We kind of had an inkling this was possible at the beginning of the year, so they drove themselves to keep competing and driving towards a very neat thing. And I know they've got a lot of bright years ahead of them. But anyways, it's my honor to be with them every day, coach them, get to know them. I don't know if I've ever laughed so hard. If you've been around 7 young ladies giggling before, it's kind of contagious. And as an older guy, you find yourself giggling sometimes. I have no idea why, but I do find myself giggling. But they're all amazing. Thank you very much, everybody.
Well, that's fantastic. And now we have one more school-related presentation, and this is a presentation by Student Body Co-President Benicia Gonzalez, who's going to talk about many different achievements at Wilsonville High School this year. Please join us.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Vanessa, and I am the ASB Co-President at Wilsonville High School. On behalf of the Westland Wilsonville School District, it is my pleasure to be here this evening to share with you some of the highlights of our school district and Wilsonville schools. Earlier this year, Wilsonville's theater program hosted its first musical in the new Performing Arts Center, which the community will be able to enjoy for years to come. The musical Elf either sold out or was close to selling out every night. The musical was then followed by The Tempest by William Shakespeare and Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. The middle school theater program also put on a production of Newsies in April. This show consisted of 2 full casts of students from all 4 district middle schools. Regarding sports, all of Wilsonville's teams had great seasons. Girls soccer won the 5A state championship for the 3rd time, beating North Eugene 2-0. Football also had a state championship title, beating Mountain View 29-23. In the winter, boys basketball advanced into the state championship game, having a very close turnout against Summit. Girls golf won the state championship last week, and the boys team took 3rd. Our girls track team finished 2nd in state last weekend. Our baseball, softball, lacrosse, and tennis teams continue their playoff runs this week. We appreciate all the ways our community supports our sports teams. In our music department, we had our symphonic band take 3rd at the NWalk League Festival, qualify and make it to the OSAA competition. Symphonic choir placed 2nd at their festival and went on to state where they placed 4th. Karen Bohart, Wilsonville's choir director, had the honor to win OSAA's Music Educator of the Year award for all her work. Our Error Code 0425 robotics team continues to nurture a love of STEM and grow future engineers and scientists. Our students hosted a Pacific Northwest district competition and advanced to a regional competition. The team is dependent on the numerous community members who, as industrial professionals, put in countless hours serving as mentors and volunteers. Just a few weeks ago, we had our annual Equity Summit. There were school board members, parents, teachers and staff, and many students with different backgrounds. Some of you may have attended. The Equity Summit was an awesome learning experience, and we appreciate the community coming together for this important event. In our schools, we've had many different events all throughout the school year. In November, Wilsonville High School had its annual Dia de los Muertos festival, and just like previous years, there were many attendees. Wilsonville also had students engage in career and technical education coursework in computer programming, digital arts, education, and journalism pathways. Each of these pathways has an advisory board that consults with our district staff on the professional and industry standards that align with each pathway. Our newest education pathway is working in collaboration with Clackamas Community College to grow a diverse pool of future educators. At the middle school level, Westland Wilsonville Middle School students partnered with SMART for another successful international walk and roll to school day. At Inza R. Wood, middle school students raised funds for community members, partnering with Wilsonville Community Sharing to give back. In the primary schools, each school hosted an international fair this year, where families got the opportunity to show their cultures and heritage with other families and community members. In science, ISEF, the International Science and Engineering Fair, participants from Wilsonville High School earned more than 30 awards at the state competition. A total of 27 students from Wood and Meridian Creek Middle School also earned recognition at the middle school state competition. Two Wilsonville High School students advanced to the International Science Fair last week, where junior Megan Witt received a $5,000 renewable college scholarship for her project. She studied bio-inspired materials and their impact on infective endocarditis. In layman's terms, this means she studied the impact of different materials to reduce infection on artificial heart valves. We continue to nurture curiosity and scientific inquiry. At CREST, our Center for Research in Environmental Sciences and Technologies, staff collaborated with the City of Wilsonville to host a successful Earth Day event, providing education and resources for Wilsonville community members. Later this week, we will be holding a dedication of the Human Center, which is a center for our adults, students, ages 18 to 21, served by special education who are in transition with school and work and independent living. Our adult transition program first started planning for this new location last year, when we launched a vision for this space that would serve as a learning hub in between students' busy class schedules at Clackamas Community College, internships and jobs in town, and planning for independent living. Today, it is an active abuzz with student voices and features a student-painted mural that showcases their connections to one another, their community, and the center's namesake, Judy Human. There are many wonderful ways the students in our community are engaged and experiencing success in our schools. We are grateful to the City of Wilsonville and this community for all of the ways that they show up and support students. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you very much. Now, before you go, Venezia, since you are here, we'd like to get your picture. I wonder if we could get one more picture with the golf team as well as the rest of the council and you and the coach. Yeah, so let's reconvene at the photography station, because we usually have all of the council members. Sorry, can I do something? I'll do one with, well, no, we'll all do.
Sean too. Sean as well.
Sean.
Yes.
Yes. Sean, all of these accomplishments.
No.
Need the wide
Golf team members, definitely take one step forward and let some people file in behind you. That way we can get a.
We have a lot of them thin in this one.
Maybe you could switch with Sean.
Okay.
Tallest in the center.
Most people are taller.
That seems good.
You could stand in that front row.
All right.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. Bye. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for your report. Thank you.
Sorry. Okay, so now we will go to our next section of the agenda, which is citizen input and community announcements. And I do have some speaker cards. And do you want to read that? Ask our city attorney to read an introduction.
Welcome to the Wilsonville City Council meeting. This is an opportunity for visitors to address the City Council on any matter concerning city business or any matter over which the council has control. It is also the time to address items not on the agenda. It is also the time to address items that are on the agenda but not scheduled for a public hearing. Staff and the City Council will make every effort to respond to questions raised during citizen input before tonight's meeting ends or as quickly as possible thereafter. To testify before the council in person or virtually, you must sign up either by completing a speaker card at the side of the room or by using the raise hand feature in Zoom. You will need to provide your name, address, including city, and topic you will be discussing. Information on engaging the City Council can be found on the City Council's webpage, ci.wilsonville.or.us/citycouncil. The mayor is the presiding officer and preserves order and decorum during the city council meetings. Pursuant to Wilsonville Code Section 2.003, subsection 14, those who have signed up to speak during citizen input have 3 minutes to testify. A timer will indicate when your time is done. As a reminder, when you begin your comments, state your name for the record and state your address, or state that your address is provided on your speaker card. The City Council wants to hear from all community members who want to address the council. Please be respectful of others by avoiding talking or other distracting conduct while others are providing their comments to council. The presiding officer or city staff may instruct anyone who is causing a disruption to stop so the council can continue to complete its official business. Additional disruptions may lead to removal from the meeting so the meeting can continue to proceed in an orderly manner. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I will read a little more about this section. And so this is an opportunity for visitors to address the council on any matter concerning the city's business or any matter over which the council has control. It is also the time to address items that are on the agenda but are not scheduled for a public hearing. Staff and the city council make every effort to respond to questions raised during citizens' input before tonight's meeting ends, or as quickly as possible thereafter, because sometimes we have to get more information. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes and use the raise hand feature on Zoom to let us know if you'd like to provide comments. So we have 2 opportunities of where you can speak. We have these chairs here at the front with microphones or the podium. And I see that we have 3 speakers who all noted the agenda item they want to address is the same. It's 3146. I have Michael Coffin, Santiago Juarez, and Jesus Sauceda. I hope I pronounced that right. If you'd like to come up to the front, then you can all come forward and take one of these microphones at the table maybe, and that way, and you can just all come. Do you prefer the podium? Sure. Go ahead. And we'll start with Jesus Sauceda.
Good afternoon. My name is Jesus Sauceda. Today, I want to highlight the crucial importance of maintaining accountability and transparency on construction projects. It has come to our attention that contractors and developers, like Palindrome, are still working on projects where workers are still not getting paid, and the workers on these projects are reaching out to us to help them. This is the real reason developers and contractors like Palindrome don't want us on their job sites. As elected leaders for this community, you must hold every contractor accountable for their actions. When we ask all of you how job sites are being monitored, you reply there's languages in place to protect the workers, or that's BOLI's job. I stand before you today to let you know that your language that is set in place is not working, and irresponsible contractors are getting away with breaking state and federal laws in your community. I have proof of all this that is happening. I'm not just up here just making stuff up. I have proof on all this. The system is broken, but I'm here to offer a way to help. Your neighboring cities are already looking into it, and some have already implemented it to their current language and construction projects. This transparency language will not only keep contractors from being irresponsible, but also make sure that the city of Wilsonville doesn't become another statistic and avoids becoming another city that's infested with labor brokers. All workers will know that when they come to work here in the beautiful city of Wilsonville, all of you took the time to implement a transparency language to protect them. I have a copy of this transparency language. Other cities have already implemented it. Now it's up to you to do the right thing for the workers and the families in your community. Would any of you like a copy?
Yes, if you could please give it to our city recorder here.
Great. I have four copies from different cities that they have implemented it.
Okay.
And it works. It works. A lot of workers come to us. They're hungry. They haven't got paid. They have kids at home. They can't pay their rent. And it's because these contractors are being very irresponsible here in Wilsonville. Very irresponsible, not paying taxes, paying the guys cash. Everybody has the right to work and get paid. This language would help that.
Thank you.
I'm ready.
And so this will be the best way to give it to our city recorder.
All righty, thank you.
Thank you, Jesus. And now we have, my next name I have is Santiago Juarez. Yes, go ahead.
All right. Good afternoon, City Council. My name is Tino, and I'm just a local carpenter that works in the Portland metro area. And as this city council has heard of us before, we've come here and brought up worker issues and issues on worker exploitation, tax fraud, and wage theft. And we're here, as we brought up before, on Palindrome, the developer and their sister company, Pacific Cap, how on a project on Southeast 92nd, that the very things that we talked about are going on, are taking place. Yet the developer, every time we bring this up, they keep saying the remarks that this is a private or a public issue or an issue of prevailing wage. I'm here to tell you tonight that this is worker exploitation is not a prevailing wage problem. It is not a private problem. It's a humanity problem. When workers are taken advantage of, it's a worker problem. And for the most part, it's a Wilsonville problem. As we are talking about making a developer agreement with this developer, my question for this team, this group of leaders here, is that what's in place in your language, in your agreement that holds teeth to contractors that don't play by the rules and practice wage theft and tax fraud? When a worker misses out on payments, this setbacks for rent. This brings setback for paying for groceries and gas, and the cycle of poverty is just going on again. As I'm here in this group, I'm asking for this group of leaders to do the right thing and to not brush this off simply as a private or a public issue, but that this is a community issue, and that what are we doing to protect the local workforce from being exploited here in Wilsonville?
Thank you. And now, Michael
Yes, ma'am. Michael
Coughlin, sorry.
Yes, ma'am. Coughlin. Yes, ma'am. Good evening. How are you doing tonight? Today I want to address a critical issue plaguing our community. Our broken tax system is a system designed to serve and protect the interests of all citizens, yet is failing due to the inability or unwillingness of our city and county governments to hold contractors and developers accountable. First and foremost, let's talk about tax evasion. It's no secret that many contractors and developers are finding ways to skirt their tax obligations. In turn, that is depriving our community of much needed revenue. The money is meant to fund schools, healthcare, public safety, but instead is lining the pockets of a few corrupt contractors and developers. Our local government seems paralyzed, acting as if they have no power to enforce tax laws in their own city. This laxity not only undermines public trust, but also creates an uneven playing field where honest businesses are at a disadvantage. This issue goes beyond loss of revenue. It is about the human cost of these failures. When contractors are not held accountable, the workers suffer. The same contractors who dodge taxes often neglect worker safety, fail to provide fair wages, and don't care when the worker gets injured on their job sites. Substandard working conditions and delayed or denied payments to these workers happen all too often, daily. My ask of you as the leaders of this city is to implement real language change in the project agreements in this great town and city that truly protects the workers and the projects here. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, and thank you for coming to speak with us. And I have one more speaker card for Tristan Rowland. Go ahead. You can choose where you'd like to stand or sit.
guess he's tall.
That's fine.
How are you guys doing tonight? Anyways, my name is Tristan Rowland. I'm a student at PCC studying political science. That's, and my address is on the card.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm here to speak about food insecurity because I've recently come across cases in Wilsonville that are quite concerning. I have a friend who's has raising 4 kids, who works at a grocery store in Wilsonville, who has been going to the food bank because for various personal reasons, she cannot afford to have enough money to buy food from the grocery. Finally, she's gotten help from friends, so this seems to be working out better. But I've met so many people in my nearby neighborhoods too who just cannot pay for groceries, and I just think this shouldn't be happening, in the city. And food insecurity is a topic that just isn't spoken about enough in politics. And there are many federal and state programs, SNAP being the most famous, and even city programs. City of Portland has the Produce for People program that seems to be working pretty well. And that's getting to my key point. I think cities can do something. And if you look around and do studies around the nation, it's not just done at the federal and state and county level. It can be done at the city level. So I'm here to sort of raise awareness for this and also ask that maybe in the near future you guys could consider putting forth a program or some sort of resolution that can create assistance to food banks so that it's not just like a once a week thing, because as of now it's a once a week thing, and to really, I think it's like every Tuesday or something that it opens, and to really create a system so that people don't have to worry about paying for rent and being hungry or having food on the table and having other situations. Especially there are lots of people raising kids that I've met who, I just don't think this is acceptable. And with, Wilsonville has a history of very, very good systems to provide revenue for programs in the past, and lots of change has happened in the last 10, 15 years because of that. And so I don't think this is anywhere in the realm of impossible. Do you know what I mean? So I think perhaps if you guys can do a study, nationally or around the state and see what other cities have been doing, this could be something we can try to get done. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well, I appreciate your presentation. I'm looking for something related to that I just moved on my desk here. Okay, so I'm going to, before we go into councilor comments, I realized that I forgot to read the letter from U.S. Representative Andrea Salinas, who was not able to come to the opening of the Public Works Department building, but she did send a letter that I wanted to read, and I also wanted to let you know that on our trip to D.C. that we just went on, she did speak about this, Tristan, and is working on our behalf, and I appreciate also that our city attorney and our city teams recently just worked with Clackamas County on some funding that will help with some of the functions that our Wilsonville Community Sharing does. So there's always more to do, but good to know there are some things underway. So just briefly, reading this letter from Congresswoman Salinas, she recognized she wanted to be there at the grand opening but could not be there, and passed on her congratulations for our new facility that allows us to deliver safer and more efficient services to the citizens of Wilsonville. And I'll, just briefly summarize the congratulations for having a seismic class 4 public works complex that lets us address the needs more efficiently. So thank you for listening to that. And I will now move to councilor comments and liaison reports, starting with Council President Akkervall.
Thank
Thank you. Second, I'm pulling up my notes too. Okay. A couple events that have happened recently in our community. This last Saturday, the city and Clackamas Soil and Water Conservation District sponsored a backyard habitats open garden tour. And this was a great opportunity to casually, interactively view two excellent examples of backyard wildlife habitat garden that were hosted by local residents. And those backyard gardens, they really showcase how restoring your yard to its natural habitat can benefit the environment for both human and wildlife health. And I appreciate those local residents that help support that event as well. A couple upcoming events on our city calendar. On May 30th at 6 p.m. at the Wilsonville campus of Clackamas Community College, the DEI speaker series concludes for this fiscal year with Building Community Through Culture, and that will be presented by Renee Roman-Nose. There's a poster right outside our city council chambers here, and some information about that presentation follows that the Native American Student Success Coordinator for the Oregon Department of Education discusses how community is not just a neighborhood, not simply a place to go, but it's something visceral. Join us as the speaker explores community through or from an indigenous perspective, challenging our own perceptions and widening our understanding of how integral we each are to our own communities and how we can help build and strengthen our communities. I think that sounds fantastic, and that's going to be May 30th, again at 6 p.m. And second, the DEI committee, in partnership with the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Committee, will host a Pride mural reception at the Parks and Recreation Administration Building on June 1st from 2 to 4 p.m. And this is an opportunity to celebrate our first Pride mural and pick up a commemorative City of Wilsonville Pride pin. I can show an example right here. There's going to be treats and Pride-themed story time, and both of these events are free and are welcome for all to participate. Here's the commemorative Pride pin. One other item I wanted to mention that's happening right here at the end of the month is on May 29th, I believe, I caught this in our city council packet, is the date that the water features will begin. So we've had a little stretch of some nice weather here, and I'm sure there are some exuberant members of our community that are ready to splash around. Well, they can starting May 29th. So we are all looking forward to that. And that is it, I believe, for me tonight.
Thank you. Councilor Linville.
Thank you, Your Honor. I wanted to pull up this. So on May the 8th, I attended the Oregon, the opioid settlement prevention, treatment, and recovery board meeting. And I wanted to report to the council that at that meeting, the board made a significant decision about distribution of some of the opioid settlement monies to the amount of $13.7 million. And the distribution will be, the administration of the funds will go to the Oregon Health Authority, and specifically $9.5 million to counties to strengthen local prevention workforce and evidence-based prevention programming. So we'll need to keep in contact with our friends at Clackamas County Health Services on accessing some of those resources. Nearly $3.8 million to culturally and linguistically specific community-based organizations and regional health equity coalitions to increase the number of primary prevention initiatives in communities experiencing disproportionate impacts of substance use and overdose, and $450,000 to the Oregon Coalition for Prevention Professionals to train and certify up to 100 new certified prevention specialists. So that was a significant decision in funding, and under the guidelines of the board, prevention is one category, and that's where this money will go specifically for prevention activities. On May 11th, I wanted to report that the Bulky Waste Day happened at Republic Services, and although I was very clear to encourage people to get there right at the start time at 9 o'clock. I was there at 20 minutes after 9, and the line was not only outside of Republic Services, but down Ritter Road quite a ways, and they had opened up some of the parking lot so that it extended, the loop extended even longer inside. There was donations collected for Wilsonville Community Sharing in the form, I think some actual donation, cash donations, but mostly in gift cards. And so it was a very popular day. I have not gotten in, I don't know if our public relations person has gotten the notice on the exact number, weight of materials that was collected that day. And then on the 18th was the hazardous waste disposal day, and that was this last Saturday, and it was conducted at the Wilsonville Transit Center, and it was sponsored by the regional government Metro, and residents were able to bring household hazardous waste products like paint, stains, pesticides, cleaners, disinfectants, and fluorescent light bulbs, which that was mine. A small portion of your monthly garbage, all of our monthly garbage bill goes to help pay for these services. I wanted to mention that on May 22nd from 2 to 3, Senator Aaron Woods will do a town hall in Charbonneau. I will attend the Aurora Airport Citizens, or the Advisory Committee meeting on the 11th of June, and I just wanted to let folks know that on June 13, the Aurora Airport will have an open house. And so that may be of interest to some folks, and that is all I have for tonight.
All right, Councilor Berry.
Thank you. So since our last city council meeting, it feels like it's been a really busy time where the council, including myself, has attended 2 city budget meetings to plan for the upcoming fiscal year. And then we also had a special city council meeting to talk about whether to continue a non-conforming use within the new town center area. And we attended the Public Works grand opening, which was really impressive. I'm just so proud of the city that we're able to pull together all the different activities that Public Works does and all the equipment that they've been storing at different locations throughout the city and build a really nice complex that's going to take us going into the future, and then also serve as the emergency center in case we have an earthquake. I hope we don't, but you know, you never know. I'd like to highlight the work day that happened last Saturday, and the work day stands for Wilsonville's Park and Recreation. It stands for the Wilsonville Environmental Resource Keepers. It's an annual event for cleaning up and the beautification of our regional park, Memorial Park. It kicked off with a complimentary breakfast courtesy of the Rotary Club, and it was followed by work projects in Memorial Park, including placing bark chips around tree rings, removing ivy, holly, blackberry, and other invasive species, cleanup in and around the city's community gardens, and all the volunteers received a $10 fun card from Bullwinkles here in Wilsonville. And let's see, I have upcoming on May 22nd, I'll be attending the Clackamas County Cities C4 Subcommittee, and we'll be talking about transportation funding and urban growth report, especially regarding the housing data. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Berry, and reminding everybody that tomorrow is Election Day, reminding everyone to vote. Everybody is probably getting these reminders to vote because for some reason the turnout is very low in Oregon, so I've seen a lot of people driving by. Hopefully that will pick up. May 21st, voting day. We will now go to our consent agenda, and I will ask the city attorney to read the agenda by title.
Resolution number 3113, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville authorizing the city manager to amend a goods and services contract with Absco Alarms Incorporated for the security and access controls for the Public Works Complex, CIP number 8113. Resolution number 3141, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville adopting the fiscal year 2024-25 5-year action plan and annual 1-year implementation plan for the Wilsonville Tourism Development Strategy, and minutes of the April 15, 2024 City Council meeting.
Thank you. The consent agenda has been read. May I have a motion, Council President Ackerval, to approve it as read?
I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. That brings us to our new business, starting with resolution number 3146.
Thank you, Mayor. And actually, we will be presenting both items together, but we will be asking the council to vote on them separately, of course, so I'll read the title of both. Resolution number 3146, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville authorizing the city manager to enter into a disposition and development agreement with Palindrome Wilsonville Limited Partnership, and resolution number 3147, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville establishing a system development charges deferral program for affordable housing projects on city-owned property.
Thank you. Now we'll go to the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Amanda Guile-Hinman, City Attorney. I'm also here tonight with Kim Reibold, our Senior Planner, to discuss with you all resolution numbers 3146 and 3147. These generally relate to the transit-oriented development project near the Transit Center. So the agenda for tonight, we are first going to be discussing resolution number 3146, going over the background and the highlights of the proposed development agreement. And then we will discuss resolution number 3147, again covering the background and then the proposed SDC deferral program or system development charges deferral program for affordable housing projects. And I'll turn it over to Kim to go over the background for 3146.
Thank you. So we were last before you in December to provide an update on this project. So just as a really quick refresher, the transit-oriented development project was one of the key implementation actions of the 2020 Equitable Housing Strategic Plan. That plan directed us to examine the vacant city-owned parcel that is at the Wilsonville Transit Center adjacent to the Smart Bus platforms. It recommended that we do a development opportunity study to see what might be possible there and to have a larger conversation around the city's goals for the project. So we did that study work in 2021, and based on the outcome of those conversations, both with the Planning Commission and the City Council, we moved into a 2-step developer solicitation construction process during 2022, first issuing a request for qualifications, followed by a request for proposals based on the submissions we had in the first round. From that process, the City Council selected Palindrome as the preferred development partner for the project. Throughout 2023, City staff worked with Palindrome to refine the development plans for the project and get those ready to be submitted to go through the land use process. That review took place in late 2023, and in the early part of this year, the city, the Development Review Board reviewed those proposed development plans and provided approval for the project. So since then, the Palindrome team has been working on putting together construction plans, and those plans are currently under review along with the public works permits. So this project, as with all affordable housing projects, has a variety of funding sources that can help make it happen. So in addition to private construction loans, other key funding sources for the project are being a recipient of the Metro Affordable Housing Bond Funds through Clackamas County, low-income housing tax credits that are available to affordable housing development via the Oregon Department of Housing and Community Services, as well as a legislative grant in the amount of $1.9 million that Representative Neron was instrumental in helping the city to get a couple of years ago. So with that, I'll turn it back to Amanda.
So tonight before you all is a proposed development agreement really outlining how this project will move forward, and really this is outside of the land use regulatory process, like Kim mentioned, that has already gone through the Development Review Board. This is really because of the city currently owning the property and going through the request for proposals process, what the city is requiring for Palindrome to move forward, to take over ownership of the land and complete the project. So one of the things that was really important to the city, to city staff, was making sure that not only are we reviewing final construction drawings from a regulatory standpoint, but also making sure that we're able to review them from the standpoint of the asks that the city had at the beginning, what we were looking for from whoever developed this site, that those construction drawings were emblematic of what those asks were from the beginning. Moreover, as is typical, there can be some minor changes that happen during construction that don't trigger a further land use review, but maybe something that the city wants to review as part of this project. And so we have additional language about that the city reviews and approves any additional changes during construction. And then finally, because commentary regarding prevailing wages has come up before, we do have explicit language about Palindrome paying prevailing wages. Not only is that a requirement by the city and the state, it's also a requirement for the Metro funding that reports be submitted about prevailing wages, and also that there's an equity workforce plan that is a requirement of Metro. So basically what our language says is not only does Palindrome have to follow those requirements, but all that reporting that is required to Metro also has to be provided to the city when that's submitted to Metro. Metro has a committee that reviews these projects, I think on a monthly basis, a fairly regular basis, that they review their projects that are used for Metro funding. So the reporting is a pretty common occurrence. The second item, which council is, I think, pretty familiar with, is that the ground floor, part of the ground floor space is supposed to be dedicated for a regional transit center and also to house Wilsonville community sharing. So the development agreement covers that not only that this ground floor space will be provided, but that they will be generally on certain terms. We have provided the current facilities lease that Wilsonville Community Sharing has with the city for its use of the Art Tech building, so that Palindrome knows what kind of terms that Wilsonville Community Sharing will be looking for in this new space. And for the Regional Transit Center, there won't be any rental cost to the city for that space. That was part of the agreement for selecting whichever developer that we move forward with. The next item is outlining the funding sources for this project that are specifically city-controlled. So first and foremost is the city subsidizing $1.42 million in systems development charges that are tied to the affordable housing project. That was discussed back when we were getting some pandemic money, but separately, we've been talking about that. It's not pandemic money, so I want to be clear about that, but that is where that idea first originated, is during that conversation. So it outlines that $1.42 million in SDCs for affordable housing will be subsidized by the city. There is still additional affordable housing SDCs, which we will get to in a little bit, that will be owed by Palindrome. As Kim mentioned, we will also be providing the $1.9 million in state grant funding for the project. In addition, I would like to note that we have also committed to providing the interest that we have accumulated since we received that $1.9 million, that we will be contributing that money to this project as well. Right now, I believe it's about roughly $156,000 additional that will go to the project. The third item, which this gets to the additional SDCs, system development charges that are due for affordable housing that Palindrome will need to pay, is that the city will defer the balance of those SDCs for affordable housing to a certificate of occupancy, and that really gets into resolution number 3147. So I'll talk a little bit more in depth about what that program looks like for Palindrome, and more generally if there was another project that came forward involving city property. But that is also outlined that Palindrome will be eligible for that, or can seek that program. And then finally, that the city will sell the property for $1. Council may recall, because Palindrome is a for-profit company, we do have to sell it for an amount. It can't be donated. $1 is what has been anticipated this entire time. Council may recall, we did have a discussion about potentially leasing the property, but really selling the property is the best option financially for the project. It makes the project from a financing standpoint much more feasible. And so that is really what you see as the typical process and approach for affordable housing projects. Finally, in one of the exhibits, there's a construction timeline. Again, this is an estimate, but it is planned that construction will begin in September of 2020, at the beginning of September 2024, and certificate of occupancy is anticipated in April of 2026. So we're looking at roughly a 18-month-ish construction timeline. So before we move on to resolution number 3147, we can take any questions that you might have on resolution number 3146.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Council President.
Thank you. Can I ask what happens if any of the parties don't fulfill any section of the agreement?
So if there are default provisions, and I will speak specifically for if Palindrome defaults, because in all likelihood the city, once the sale is complete, there's really not many obligations left of the city. That if Palindrome defaults, we have the option of requiring specific performance. Essentially what that means is that you force the contractor to finish the work. We can require Palindrome to pay the cost for us to go out and get a contractor to finish the work. And we also have bonding requirements that come with the work as well, so we can collect on payment bonds for failure to complete the work.
And so I assume if they're forced to finish the work, they're forced to finish the work within the agreement.
Correct.
Like within the conditions of the agreement.
Correct. And I will also note that given all the funding sources that are available, that Palindrome is obtaining for this project, you can imagine the ramifications for any type of default are pretty severe. It really means that in all likelihood, they'd be opening up all their assets to potentially being obtained through a court order to pay for these, to pay for anything that needs to be completed.
And can I ask one more question?
Sure.
The leasing agreement part of it, and I found in our packet information on that as well. But is my understanding correct that it is in perpetuity, really, for example, for Wilsonville Community Sharing and for Smart, that they would have a space there in the building. It's not, this is set for the first 24 months and then we have a new plan in place.
Correct. It doesn't have the same timeline, and even that timeline is very long, but it doesn't have the same end date as the affordable housing does, which is 60 years. So,
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify, I appreciate that you pointed out that under this project, we are obligated to pay prevailing wage. And we had discussed that early on when we were discussing the options with the different developers and how that would look. I noticed too that in the contract that copies of payroll reports and other wage reporting that the developer is required to provide to BOLI and to Metro will also be provided to the city. So we will have those records as well.
Correct.
And those will be monitored against the performance.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay. Thank you.
Yes, and just as a further note, one of the parts of this is that we not only have, a sort of a standard city staff project management when a construction a private project is going on, we've designated city staff to be project managers more so not just from that regulatory lens, but from the lens of this is a city project in essence because of the funding that we're providing and the land that we're providing.
Just following up on that, so you're saying that is the reason we have a city project manager on that?
Correct.
Right. Okay, well, I think you covered the questions that I had about section 3.3, which is prevailing wage, and if there is a problem identified there, what recourse would we have?
So a complaint can be made to BOLI for this, but we have recourse as a default provision under our agreement because that is a requirement of this agreement. They would be in default if they don't, even if they fail to provide us with the reporting, that would be a default measure. So there is a cure period that they can cure it within, but yes, we could say that they are in default just by merely failing to provide us with the documentation that they're required to provide.
Thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead.
No, but it's really good to get all that clarification. Thank you.
Okay, so you wanted to continue?
Yeah, so we'll move into, and we can also answer any further questions that you may have on Resolution 3146, but we'll move to Resolution number 3147, and again, I'll turn it over to Kim.
Thank you. So back to the Equitable Housing Strategic Plan. There's another action that we've not really looked at holistically, but have looked at on a limited basis thus far, and this would be Action 2C, which is explore tactics to reduce the impact of systems development charges on affordable housing. This was not action that was on the top priority list, mainly because we recognize there might be some complexity to it. It's pretty nuanced depending on the situation, but essentially what this action asked was to either look at SDCs as they relate to the size of units, and some of the Frog Pond work has actually done some research into that. There have not been any policy changes at this time, but that question has been explored. The other two components of that are delaying collections of SDCs to a later time within the construction process. What this does is reduces the amount of construction loan in terms of actually carrying that amount at the beginning of the project. And so particularly for affordable housing, when you're really trying to make all the numbers work, that can provide relief to the developer in terms of the numbers. Lastly, the other item tied to this action is offer offering reductions or waivers of SDCs or permit fees to help offset the cost of developing this housing. And so, as Amanda noted, there is a partial, not a waiver, but essentially a subsidization of SDCs for the affordable housing component of the project. And so really, and I'll let Amanda get into it more, but the high-level policy direction here was to examine this potentially for all affordable housing. What we're looking at within this resolution is really, for now, limited in scope and nature to city-owned property. And so I'll turn it back to Amanda.
Thanks, Kim. So I just want to highlight some changes, some Wilsonville Code Chapter 11 changes that occurred in 2019 as most of the council was present for this, but as a refresher. So prior to this Chapter 11 is where we house our fees, and that includes our systems development charges. Prior to 2019, regarding deferrals, there was really no policy direction on when an SDC deferral would be granted or not. It was kind of a developer may request it, and then an agreement will be created, and then it'll be brought to council for approval. But there wasn't really a rhyme or reason why a deferral would be granted or not, or be requested or not. And so when we went through a revision to Chapter 11 in 2019, rather than simply having language that allowed for SDC deferral agreements, language was included that said that the city council can adopt an SDC deferral program, and then people can seek an SDC deferral under that program. Since that time, we have not adopted any SDC deferral program. And so as Kim mentioned with the Equitable Housing Strategic Plan, looking at this as a potential item to explore, and this being an opportunity for us to have a narrow scope in really analyzing from a strategic standpoint the viability of deferrals of SDCs for affordable housing. We anticipate that this is a good starting point in looking at affordable housing projects on city-owned property. So with that, what we're looking at for this proposed SDC deferral program, again, like I mentioned, it's pretty narrowly focused. Again, it's an affordable housing project. There's a pretty standard definition for affordable housing projects where it's either each unit is available at incomes of 80% or less area median income, or that the average of all units available are for incomes of 60% or less area median income, and that they have a 60-year deed restriction. So this project, the transit-oriented development project, does qualify as an affordable housing project. The second item for this program to apply is that it would involve city-owned property. And I decided on the general language of involving city-owned property because I do imagine there could be a time where a project may span multiple properties and one might be city-owned. So I didn't want it to limit to just on city-owned property, just anticipating that it could having a little bit of flexibility in the city-owned property section. And you'll also note from the program defining city-owned property, we included both property owned by the City of Wilsonville and the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Wilsonville, just in case there comes a point in time where the Urban Renewal Agency may buy land for some reason. So the program terms require a deferral agreement that is on terms and conditions acceptable to the city in its sole discretion, that there is a payment date for the ultimate systems development charges of no later than the certificate of occupancy, but it allows the city to require a payment date earlier than the certificate of occupancy. If the project involves residential units, that there be a 60-year deed restriction on that land, which is what we are requiring for the transit-oriented development project. If this involves an owner-occupied project or other development, there are other deed restrictions that can be placed when you're dealing with owner-occupied units, such as a sales formula that basically limits how much higher you can sell a property for, and usually that is also then tied to a buyer eligibility requirement. So that way you keep the buyer pool at the level that you're trying to get, either an 80% or 100% AMI, and then also that you're not increasing the property value so high they can't afford that owner-occupied unit. And then finally, a very common restriction that you'll see is that the residence has to be the person's primary residence, so it can't be a second home. And then finally, the final element is that this cannot be used, the program cannot be used for systems development charges attributable to other portions of the project. So I just, from a practical standpoint, kind of want to lay out what this would look like for the transit-oriented development project. So first and foremost is that Palindrome would have to enter into a deferral agreement with the city, and that the payment date would be no later than the certificate of occupancy. Why this is particularly important for a project like the transit-oriented development project, as Kim mentioned, penciling out these projects is extremely challenging. There's a lot of funding sources that have to come into play to really make it pencil out. Something like this can save a developer just in the carrying costs of a loan to pay for systems development charges. It can save anywhere in the hundreds of thousands of dollars to not have to pay that cost, August 1, and instead pay it of 2024, and instead pay it April 1 of 2026, especially when you look at interest rates today. So it's a huge cost saving for a project such as this. This will require a deed restriction, like we've already mentioned, of 60 years. And for Palindrome, as we've discussed, there is the ground floor space. The SDC deferral program cannot be used for any of the systems development charges that are tied to the ground floor space that is not being used for affordable housing units. So the transit center, the Wilsonville community sharing area, and the tap house coffee shop would not be eligible to use this deferral program. So those will still be required at the issuance of building permit. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have on this particular program.
Councilor Linville.
So I know that we did a deferral, I think, previously of system development charges with a developer that related to the timing of the implementation of the system development charge increase. And I'm wondering if putting this in place would tie the hands of the council and prevent them from doing that kind of action in the future, because it wouldn't necessarily fall under this policy, under this resolution.
You're referring to the parks system development charge that we locked in? Okay. I don't think it would necessarily prevent that from happening, since that was really deciding a date for determining. So a separate code provision in our systems development charges identifies the date under which we decide when the system development charges are being calculated. It's from the date that the building permit application is deemed complete by the city and thus goes through plan review. And so because that is a separate code provision, it's not tied to deferrals, I don't think that this would tie council's hands in making a similar determination regarding that type of determination.
Okay. So this relates specifically to city property.
It relates specifically to city property, and it relates specifically, pretty much, basically only to when is the payment going to be due, not when the city's deciding what the amount is.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Maybe. This program, it seems to have a pretty narrow scope.
Correct.
Okay.
And I will say, I think the reason that we're looking at a narrow scope is because there are consequences to doing a deferral program. The first being that any money that you collect 2 years from now generally is not going to be as valuable as money you would collect today. So there is an impact to the city's budget by delaying the collection. It also impacts projects being able to be done, because that's money that's not going into our system development charges funds. And I mean, there have been times in the past where where the city has entered into system development charges deferral agreements where collection became challenging. And so for us to step back into this on a very narrow scope, on a project that generally you see across the region, we research different cities to see what they're doing with regard to system development charges for affordable housing projects. This is pretty consistent and actually a little bit more conservative than what some other jurisdictions do. So I think for staff, it feels like a good first step before potentially expanding either to all affordable housing or something like that.
I think I appreciate that because as we've talked about on council, our system development charges are pretty important for us to be able to continue to deliver the level of service with our parks, with our streets, with our, with our everything that we really expect in Wilsonville and that lead to a healthy, productive quality of life for any community member. So I think, personally, I feel a little protective of the system development charges, but I see that it is critical and important in moving forward some of these very precise and specific projects that we also see as benefiting our community. So there's a balance in there, and I guess I think I'm hearing from all of this description and from the material that was presented in our packet that this, like for instance, we're not going to be surprised by, now we have this sudden application for a deferral of system development charges, especially when it's tied to city property, because we know what property we have, we know what projects might be coming onto those pieces of property and things like that. So I think this is a good first step, and I appreciate the thoughts that has gone into the formation of it.
I just have another question.
Sure.
Why would we not do a resolution on a case-by-case basis instead of doing something that is a blanket over something that we might not be able to foresee in the future? What's the rationale for doing that rather than just doing a specific project on a project? Because we will, my sense is we will not have that many. Mm-hmm. And why would we not do it on a case-by-case basis?
So our code explicitly says that council has to adopt a program for anyone to be able to seek a deferral. So unless the program was, we will take it in on a case-by-case basis, there's really not, in our current code, there is really not a way to do it on a case-by-case basis.
Could we go back and clarify again this specificity of this particular case? I mean, this particular program, I should call it.
Right. The specificity being not only that it's an affordable housing project that meets the definition, that's, that we call that the big A affordable housing. It has to meet that requirement, and that it also has to be on or involving city-owned property, so either City of Wilsonville or the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Wilsonville. So again, that's not other jurisdictions' property who might own property in the city. It's not private property. So it's extremely limited in the scope of this project. And that's not to say, to Councilor Linville's point, and also to Council President Aukervall's point, I think if we were seeing something that might need a deferral, that maybe the program needed to be expanded, I think the benefit is there's then a conversation with council where council's making that determination of should the program be expanded. And we would know that probably relatively early in a project if that was something that was necessary.
So, I mean, the narrow scope part of this is that it's for city-owned properties, right?
Right.
And so if this goes forward, then this possibly could be a model for other properties outside city-owned, but then we would adopt a new resolution.
Right, exactly, yeah. So if for some reason we were seeing some affordable housing projects that were coming up that were on private property, and we anticipated that the feasibility called for this deferral program to be expanded, and we were not seeing significant negative ramifications of the program as it is now, then that might be something that we could bring back to council for council's consideration.
Something to be explored later.
Right.
I think that you've done a really nice job on this. Thank you.
Well, I was just going to add that in any consideration of affordable housing, our first problem is where to get the money for it. You're looking for enormous sums of money, and it usually doesn't work from just the conversations I've had and talking to other cities and our conversations here, unless first you own the land for the city to do it, because you're, unless some person comes out of nowhere and gives us $20 million, a rich uncle or something, we are going to be looking for funds to make that affordable. And so the SDCs is one way to do that. You're going to be looking, remember that list of all the options the stack of funding sources? So I don't think there would be much chance of doing very many of these because we're miles away from it. You know, we had several things that came to bear to bring the Metro Housing Bond money. We had the ARPA money, and then we work with the Affordable Housing Program. But I don't think that, it's not like we're going to have another opportunity like this anytime soon. Perhaps if we have some city land that we can build on, but we're still going to be looking for funding sources. So that's one of them. And I can't imagine the city voting to go forward unless we looked at on another program, unless we looked at our entire list of funding sources and could agree that we could afford to do that. We could afford to forego those SDCs. Because for that particular affordable housing project, I agree with you, with both Council President Ockerville and Councilor Linville, that we have to be extremely judicious about these SDCs. I've heard, people say, oh, well, just cut those out. That makes it more affordable. It's using the words of city manager, it's a zero-sum game. You run out of money. We need the SDCs to operate our city. And we found in talking to developers in our many interviews that we did that they also value the SDCs, because then when they build housing, neighborhoods and residential areas in our city, they can count on the fact that we have the amenities that we build with those SDCs that help their houses sell quickly, which means a lot. So with that said, from what we've learned tonight, due to our charter, we need to have a program.
Under the
Any more
code.
questions on? Yeah. Yeah, we've got all kinds of questions.
So, is there an escape clause? And here's what I guess I'm thinking is, suppose down the road that a project met all of these criteria, but the city was not in the place with a budget that could afford to defer them. I mean, we'd love to, it'd be great, would be the most wonderful thing in the world, but we can't figure out how to do that. Does this obligate us to do, if the project otherwise meets all the other criteria?
That's a great question, Councilor Linville. So one of the items under the terms is that it requires the developer to enter into a systems development charges deferral agreement on terms and conditions that are acceptable to the city in its sole discretion. So on the one hand, I would say it does require the city to look at doing a deferral agreement. The question would be, could there be terms and conditions that both parties could agree to? And I'm not sure the answer would be yes. And also, I will say, if the council gets to a point where, or staff feel like this program isn't feasible, the real process should be repealing the resolution to repeal the program, which the council can do.
But that might not occur because this is based on city-owned properties, and it's not like the city owns a lot of properties where we're going to be building affordable housing, right? Or am I making a bad assumption?
I don't know if Kim has some insight.
The amount of city-owned land in general that would be buildable is pretty limited. I can think of a couple of other instances, but we haven't had any policy discussion on any of that. And so I don't think the city would necessarily be in a position to even initiate solicitation. That's a conversation we would have at a much higher level before even going through a process to try to solicit a development partner and contemplate developing a city-owned property. So, and that conversation certainly would not happen without city council.
Are there any other, what we can do is we can continue with questions, or we can call for the vote and then have discussion. Okay.
There's no motion.
There's no motion yet. I just want to see if we have any more questions.
So if we have a motion now, then we can still have a discussion with questions, right?
You should make clarifying questions now. We're still happy to take more clarifying questions. Yeah.
I'll do one more clarifying
No rush.
question.
Take your time.
So, Kim, based on what you just described there wouldn't be a situation where we were surprised by an application, because we would be intentionally developing a city-owned property for affordable housing. It's not like we have chunks of city-owned land out there that we're just like, come and develop on this, and it's this dangling invitation that is going on always into the future. We're usually very targeted with that sort of project and intentional with that project, right?
Yes, that's correct. And, just from a land use process perspective, so a step further into that, the city has to sign off and provide permission for any sort of development application to happen on a city-owned property. And so there's, I think, multiple steps along the way that, would happen that if the city was not agreeable to affordable housing project of this nature, that we would essentially not provide permission to move forward with that. But we would, you're right, in that we would have to, the state statutes around disposition of property would require us to go through a process. We can't just, offer it up to whoever wants it without going through a process.
And if we had, trying to think about all the different possible futures there may be, but if we had a piece of land sometime in the future that we decided, yeah, we would like this to become affordable housing, and it makes sense for X, Y, and Z reasons, and we see how this could be a good fit for the community. However, we're not in a strong enough budget situation for us to do the deferral of the SDCs. Then we would need to repeal, we would be in this maybe slightly awkward situation of needing to repeal the resolution prior to pursuing that affordable housing thing. And the lingering question would be, could it even be feasible without the deferral of the SDCs? Which, we can't know what all the levers will be in the future. We can't know what grant opportunities will be there in the future, or how expensive construction costs will be in the future, or, there's many variables that go into such a large, complicated project that we can't know at this point in time. But I'm just trying to pursue all of the different paths and how that might feel to be sitting on the side of the dais with that context and that situation in front of you. I think it's probably unlikely, it sounds like, that we would be pursuing an affordable housing project at some point in the future, on some land that we own, where it meets all the city things and it's actual viable project that could happen, yet we cannot contribute in this way. Do you think that's an accurate statement?
I would say based on the landscape of affordable housing and affordable housing projects and financing now, I mean, that would seem reasonable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but in the same breath, I don't want to open ourselves up to putting our financial situation and our budget at risk for, again, providing the services and the quality of amenities that we expect in our community and that serve all community members, you know, including all new community members that we bring in to our city with any projects such as we're discussing tonight. So,
I will also note, too, that, as Kim mentioned, this is one item of our equitable housing strategic plan. There are many other strategies that are discussed in there. There may come, I mean, the hope is there comes a time where funding sources are more developed, where a deferral program isn't what's required, where, you know, there's other funding mechanisms, other levers, where maybe this is an item that isn't actually even needed at some point. So I do want to also say that just because this program is being done, it doesn't stop all the other work that's being done to work on housing affordability and other avenues that we can explore for funding sources.
that's good to hear, too. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions, I'm going to ask for a motion. No, I'm going to ask for a motion on Resolution 3146.
I move to adopt Resolution 3146.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? I'll just add this is, because we've been talking about 3147, I will just recap that 3146 is a resolution of the City of Wilsonville authorizing the city manager to enter into a disposition and development agreement with Palindrome Wilsonville United Partners. And I think this is a good idea. We've been discussing it for a long time. I appreciate, and these projects take a long time to put together, as we were told at the beginning, and we witnessed it. It's really something that was discussed quite a bit also on our trip to Washington, D.C. And it took all of the pieces that we have. The fact that we happen to own that land already at the West Station was the first enabling factor. And then certainly we would not have been able to build the ground floor projects with the money available, because it's just not allowed under that kind of funding. So we were able to get outside funding through Representative Neron. And then the developer found various forms of funding that are described in the staff report. We heard from, and it's going to be a beautiful building right there on the, obviously that's why we call it a transit-oriented development. Maybe someday we'll have a different name for it. Can give it a more poetic name than transit-oriented development. 121 units of housing. Thank you, everybody. Any other discussions or comments? Okay. Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. And that brings us to Resolution 3147. Do I have a motion?
I move that we I move that we approve Resolution 3047.
3147.
3147, excuse me.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved that we, if you don't mind restating, to adopt.
Oh, I move that we adopt Resolution 3147.
I'll second that modification.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 3147. Is there any discussion?
Well, we discussed that this has a narrow scope and that it's for properties that are owned by the city. And I think that it sounds like a good fiscal decision for this project that we have in front of us, and that it would be okay to go forward with it as a program.
And I'll just say that I appreciate staff keeping an eye on this resolution as we move forward into the future. And beyond this project that's in front of us right now, but as we always continually balance needs of the community and our budget and what we can support in a sustainable way.
All right. Thank you. Councilor Linville.
Yeah, I do not have a problem with deferring the SDCs on this particular project. I don't have any problem with that at all. I do have I do have some concerns about a general program. And even though we don't have land that city owns right now, we don't know down the line, down the future, where there will be city land, and all of us are long gone by then, and who knows what happens. And so I just have a few misgivings about just a blanket kind of a program that where a concession could be made, and the city may not be able to perform at that level. So I'm going to abstain from the decision just because I have some concerns about it. And so that will be my vote, I think.
I think I stated my opinion earlier that I think that were the city to decide to pursue another affordable housing structure on land it owns, it would have to be a very purposeful, it would be the city needing to pursue. I don't see a possibility of an outside entity coming along and announcing that they were going to be building something there. It wouldn't be logical. And so that I could see the city, just as we did here, exploring this as we did at the beginning. Is this possible? We own some land? What are the possibilities? What are the various partners that we can come up with? And we would develop, I envision, seeing our past processes, that we would be developing a financing plan, incorporating, if you did do the deferral, how do your finances look? And what are the other funding sources to come with it? Because from what, in my experience, the SDC deferral is not going to be anywhere near enough. You'd have to still find other funding to make it an affordable housing project. So I think, I appreciate what you're saying, Councilor Linville, about, being cautious and so forth. I'm going to vote yes on this because I feel comfortable that there are enough guardrails.
If I could just make another comment.
Sure.
With all of that oversight and decision-making, it seems to me we're still dealing with a case-by-case basis. So I don't see, I still, I still don't know.
I understand.
Yeah. So I'm still kind of
You're
torn.
making a good point. I'm not disagreeing. I'm not disputing your point. I was just explaining my vote.
Sure.
And I think with this discussion, I think we've all made our comments. I'm going to call for the vote. So all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any abstain?
I abstain.
Any opposed? Motion passes 3 in favor, 1 abstain. And that brings us to continuing business. Ordinance number 891. Will the city attorney please read the title?
This is the second reading of ordinance number 891, an ordinance of the City of Wilsonville repealing and replacing Wilsonville Code Sections 2.310 through 2.319 regarding public contracts.
Thank you. I call to order the Wilsonville City Council's second reading on ordinance number 891 as has been read. Does any member of the council have any questions for staff or the city attorney on ordinance number 891? Hearing no further questions, and hearing no questions, do I have a motion on ordinance number 891?
I move to adopt ordinance 891 on the second reading.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
It has been moved and seconded that we enact ordinance number 891. Is there any discussion? Well, we've had almost hours of discussion on this at previous meetings, and I will refer people back to the previous packets. And I think we concluded our discussion on this with a lot of efficiency improvements and many different levels of oversight there, from the city council to the city manager to the budgetary process. Is there any further discussion or remarks that any council member wants to make? Or I call for the vote? Hearing no further discussion or commentary, I hereby ask the city recorder to make a roll call vote. Those in favor of adoption of the ordinance will, as their names are called, answer aye. Those opposed will answer no. Those who wish to abstain from the vote will answer abstain. The city recorder will now call the roll.
Counselor Berry?
Aye.
Counselor Linville?
Aye.
Council President Akkerval? Aye. Mayor Fitzgerald?
Aye. The motion passes 4-0. That brings us to any city manager business. An assistant manager, city manager Troha, welcome to our meeting. We didn't even get to say that hours ago.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. 2 items for you. So just to get on your calendar, on June 29th at 10 a.m. is the Korean War Remembrance Ceremony at Town Center Park. And there will be a tour after that of the Interpretive Center. It looks amazing. I had an opportunity to see it the other day, and it's just about done, and it's really amazing. So I just want to make sure that that was on your calendar and you knew that it would be an opportunity to go in and see it. And then the other thing is, you mentioned tomorrow is Election Day. Yes. We have a ballot drop box here at City Hall, so just reminding folks that it's right here at the front entrance. You can drive up. It's been very busy the last couple of days, so please come drop your ballot off. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any legal business?
None tonight, Mayor.
Okay. Meeting is adjourned, 8:55 p.m.